Welcome to the Gen AI podcast, where the future meets fun and tech talk trends. Get ready to dive into the world of artificial intelligence like never before. Your hosts, Dale, Alan, Greg, and Val, are about to take you on a wild ride through the AI universe. So, buckle up, tune in, and let the AI adventure begin.
Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. Happy 2026. A big year in store for us. 2025 was good, but I feel like it was an appetizer. Al, Greg, Happy New Year to you too as well. How are you guys? Did you
Happy New Year.
have a good one? Did you have a restful break, Greg, with the new edition?
No, I've got an 8-week-old and a 2-year-old. It was exhausting. I'm so glad I'm back at work.
Said every parent when school started again, right, Al? Drop them off at nursery,
Yep.
at school.
Yep. Having a
Okay.
great couple of days now since school started. So
Yeah.
rested.
Absolutely. But look, it's a good start to 2026. We were just chatting offline there. CES has happened. Greg, you were quite excited about the drone announcement.
Yeah.
But that did get us talking about robotics and, how much closer we might be, moving away from sort of the more virtual AI into the more physical AI. But where do you want to start, gents? Do you want to start with your drones there, Greg, and perhaps explore what robotics might be?
I'll let me for the camera for people watching my drone wall of all my drones. Drone tech's actually going nuts. Actually, not because of CES, but because of defense. So,
Yeah.
it's been the classic battle in actually Ukraine where they used DJI, I think it was DJI FPV. From the videos I've seen on YouTube, it looked like in the originals were DJI FPV. And then they were able to geolocate block them. So then they used the old guard, which was the video transmission FPVs, at which point they were able to signal block them. So now they're using optical fiber, but optical fiber can be snapped or cut. So then they've actually just gone and built AI for drones that looks for humans, and the ones that I've seen online just looks for human shapes, human silhouettes, and kamikazes into them, and it's like, what kind of world are we starting to live in now? Like, that's
Yeah.
pretty nuts.
That is pretty nuts. I was actually having this conversation recently with a few different colleagues, industry professionals around, we've spoken previously about planes, commercial airlines that can fly themselves autonomously. It doesn't actually need the pilot. And the one comment was, well, actually, they'll never allow a commercial plane to take off on its own. And I don't know if that's true or not, that, pilots have to do it. But Greg, you can confirm or deny whether or not that's actually true, because you know that space quite well. We know that planes can do it.
Planes have been flying themselves for quite a number of years now.
Mm.
And yeah, there's a liability thing there. But the way I think about it is, okay, so what's the advantage? You save on a couple of pilot salaries, but your kind of risk profile goes through the roof currently because of the legal framework. But I'm like, okay, let's think about other industries. And we're all in construction. And over Christmas, I was rewatching the Avatars because I was hoping that maybe one day my wife and I can have a date, maybe go and watch the third if it's still in cinemas by the time we get the opportunity to do that.
Or maybe the fourth, mate.
Maybe the fourth, but we were watching the second one, The Way of Water, and at the start, the humans come back to the planet, and I'm, sorry for spoilers if anyone's not watched it, but in the background, they have little spider robots that are doing all of the building, and I was like, actually, that kind of stuff makes more sense where you've got like a massive lack of qualified professionals in an industry, and you actually have enormous demand, and it's something that is kind of replicable. So if it's, like laying bricks, or if it's base welding or something like that, I'm like, okay, maybe that's actually maybe that's within the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember, I think before we started the Gen AI podcast, I remember being at the Project Controls Expo dinner with you a couple of years ago. We sat next to each other talking about these little robotic ants that will go all over construction sites and build stuff.
In my mind, it'll be ants and drones, because 2 legs is not the most efficient structure. 2 legs is really good if you want to stand up tall and you want to run long distances, but it's not the most efficient structure if you want to have control over rough terrain. It's more like ants or beetles or something like that.
Well, ants can also carry much more than their body weight than humans can. So it's a good thing to model off of.
Going back to planes for a minute, there's so Garmin have this product. It's called Autoland, and it's been pretty much installed on every single plane that's been built since, even small ones, since 2019, 2018, something like that.
Really?
But I was reading in the news last week or 2 weeks ago, because it's basically designed to engage by itself. So what it does is that it does the whole. It's not just like following VFR descent paths or anything like that. It actually automatically engages. So if you lose cabin pressure, that's one of the scenarios where it automatically engages, talks to ATC, gets clearance, and lands the plane.
Pretty good.
And it was the first instance of it automatically engaging in the wild a couple of weeks ago, yeah. And I think it was at Denver Airport, where there's like a Gulfstream, I think, where they lost cabin pressure, and it was just the pilots in there. There was nobody else. And so the pilots didn't get incapacitated in the end, but they were like, we're just going to let it do its thing in case we do get incapacitated because there's not enough oxygen. And it landed itself. So I think, like, you talk about risk profile, Greg. I think if you put these things in the right place, they actually change the risk profile for the better, right? But you have to think about how you're deploying and how you're designing the thing, right? Because otherwise,
I completely agree. It's not as simple, and you and I build this kind of stuff for a living. It's not as simple as it's not black and white. It's not humans or machines. It's like some kind of combination, and it's the combination that's actually the complex thing to figure out. So in that situation, obviously it's human and machine, but it's like, okay, well, how do the humans and machine interact? So the humans clearly had the ability to turn it off if they wished, but it had an auto trigger under certain events.
Yeah.
So it was a reject by action system as opposed to an approve by action system. And it was contained to landing as opposed to doing barrel rolls and whatever it is. Yeah. I like that.
barrel rolls are probably easier than landing, I think.
Yeah. Well, my drones up there all have autopilot on them. Now it's no AI, and this is how like you get a flight controller now for about $50, and the flight controller will have autopilot on it for one of these drones. And what it does is it locks the GPS location when you take off. It monitors all of the flight and the height, and then it's a dumb system. So if you lose signal, it just climbs to the highest height that you've done during the flight, assumes that all obstacles are below that, and it flies back to the geolocation and then lands itself. And then it's the same
for drones. That's good enough.
Yeah, and what it is if once you get signal back, you have full control over the drone as well. So it's a backup system. It's a slave system, not a master system.
And all of this does actually matter, because if you look at, we use broad topics and terms, AI, robotics, just umbrella terms, but they can, as you say, be deployed in different contexts and used in different ways. And so if we do get specific, because Greg, you normally pull me up on this and say, well, ask a specific question, not a generalist one. And we look on projects and sites. Where are the specific scenarios that we think robotics will give us biggest bang for our buck? Because we talk about these little robot ants running all over the show, building stuff. right? That's still quite general. Can we see it doing anything sort of below ground, or is it only once foundations and
So
everything's set?
the three areas where I see robotics coming into construction probably first. Number one is existing machinery. So where you've got automation of cranes or automation of just on-site transport or something like that. Number two would be dangerous areas. So like you said, it would be underground, or it would be in radiation areas, or it would be maybe even at height. And number three is surveys, which is, you may think, well, it's kind of automated at the moment. Well, it's not fully, as in, imagine a system that actually, there's 1,000,001 companies out there that claim to use cameras to track progress on site. And it's like, okay, well, when they truly get advanced, they could just auto-launch drones, do a full site survey with no pilot engaged, land charge, DJI do that kind of tech now and then update. So those are the three areas. And it's mainly because those are the safety one obviously is a key point, but the other two are just ease of, it's not a big leap, it's just a small nudge over the fence. I think to have human like bipedal movement and complex tasks like wiring or electrical work or welding will probably be middle of the ground in my mind, but like what I'd call high skill coordination work, that in a non-controlled environment. So you obviously have controlled automation of welding in car manufacture today, but in an uncontrolled environment where the actual equipment has to get to where the thing is, I think that'll take longer. But this is what we were discussing before the call is, I don't know if the chips are there yet. People are certainly pitching the vision that they are.
Yeah, there's plenty. I mean, go ahead, Al.
No, I think like the thing that jumps out at me is like, if we think about all the different professions and activities and work that happens on site, to me, the things that are gonna happen first are always gonna be the ones that are most expensive, right? And I can't quite make my mind up about what that is going to be, right? But because you need like a combination of expensive things that you can probably do easily with a robot. And so like dangerous stuff is kind of like already being done a lot today by remote operation. Right? And so if you can remotely operate a bot quite efficiently to go into like even into Chernobyl, right, to go and fix and goodness, like throwing a rocket into the dome over Chernobyl is like one of the stupidest things that has ever happened on this planet. But set that aside, if you got to go and fix that, then probably remotely operated machinery is good enough because you still have a high level of specialism. It's kind of what I'm getting at, right? But surveying difficult geology or like going into caves, but it's not like we do that much of that in construction, to be honest, unless it's like very, very specific. That's when maybe just autonomous stuff starts becoming interesting. Because then you don't need the specialism and you can solve the problem quite easily. But a lot of the ones like welding is like incredibly hard to build robotics that can do welding. Right? Even from a
depending
controls
on the
perspective.
environment, yeah. Well, do you know what? Zooming out, we're having a discussion on what would be first. Zooming out, I actually reckon the whole thing will look like a hockey stick curve. In the first ones will be an eclectic mix of attempts, but then once an infrastructure platform comes out, it'll probably have to be code and machinery, as in a platform
absolutely.
that you can program and adapt to different things that's capable enough. I reckon you'll get a hockey stick of all these activities that are suddenly accessible physically, and it won't just be construction. The likelihood is that you're, in the long run, not going to get construction-specific robots unless it's the ants from Avatar. The likelihood is that some big player is producing robotics that are able to cope with a range of situations, and you kind of self-program them. That it's like mass customization. That's probably the end game. I wouldn't, wonder if we'll see that in our lifetimes. Probably with the rate we're going at the moment.
Yeah, you're probably right. Like, it's going to be like a Boston Dynamics or something, and then all the different contractors are just going to buy a bunch of Boston Dynamics robots and hire some roboticists and say, like, okay, now you solve these problems using the robots.
Yeah, and they'll just have
I think that's probably.
I'm thinking potentially something like 3D printing at scale, and I don't mean like a massive, gigantic 3D printer, but if you equipped those army of ants, let's say, with 3D printing capabilities with different types of materials,
that's possible.
And
it
they're
just
working
comes down
together.
It comes down to unit economics, because if you take 3D printing of concrete, it's been around for a while now, and it's like, okay, let's say you get one of those robots in some way, and it's deeply affordable because they're doing it at mass. Then yeah, it could become, totally. I think that infrastructure will actually change to match the technology, as opposed to technology changing to match the infrastructure, because ultimately economics will guide everything. So if you have the capability to produce a sheltered structure in a certain way for minimum cost with maximum automation, then a lot of those structures will be designed. It will be an emergent phenomenon.
Yeah. And what does that mean for all of us, though? Because we all work in a space where either our products, our services, our expertise is required because things are so complex, and so if we make them easier,
I don't see this.
Move to New Zealand.
Nuclear bunkers. I don't see this specific thing. Someone said to me today, Greg, you're incredibly right. Oh no, you're annoyingly right about trends of the future, but you're terrible at predicting the timing. So with that in mind, I'll say I don't see these complex tasks happening anytime soon. Like, this is an endeavor for 20, 30 years or whatever it is. Like, do I think it'll happen at some point in time? Yeah. It's like there's nothing physical stopping the inevitability. But for us here, no, it's like things still need to be built, and to be honest, that future world needs to be designed, which is actually what the three of us specialize in. So I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of it's also got to do with what people know, right, in terms of adoption. And what we know now is that, I mean, you remember all the skeptics when ChatGPT first broke, right? And now, like, every man and his dog's using ChatGPT and all the other ones as well. And so I just wonder, as you say, it's when you get that hockey stick movement, when is that timing? And it's difficult because if you look at, it's almost by stealth that wearables have become a thing. Everyone's got a smartwatch now. It's being tracked. Everyone's got a mobile phone. And you're right. I think you're right. It'll probably be by stealth. But yeah, El, let's bring you into this as well a bit more, because although it's a robotics thing, there is software behind this robotics. If it's not going to be remote controlled, it's going to be autonomous and have AI capabilities, and dare we say it, agentic capabilities as well to make decisions on site. What sort of system does that look like? And, there's a big trust issue going on as well with allowing machines just to freely roam and do stuff on the site.
Well, that's something that we're going to have to get over. I don't think there's another way of solving that problem. We're just going to have to get over it, right? If you want the efficiency gain, you get over the trust issue. And how do you get over the trust issue? Well, I'm gonna quite cynically say we do what we've always done in construction. We let somebody else do it first, and then we let somebody else do it second, and then we let somebody else do it third. And we're like, oh, maybe someone should try it. And then an innovation manager does a pilot project, and then 2 years later, someone says, oh, maybe we'll actually sign up and do the thing, right?
So can I pause there? What is an innovation manager? What's their role? Because
well, have you seen my post about it? Oh, it's not a post; it's like a LinkedIn joke.
No, I haven't. But
so an innovation manager is someone who puts no in innovation. No, they're not, right? But like, I think the reason why I said that is because creating a dedicated innovation function is the lazy person's way of saying, oh yeah, dear board, I have dealt with that. So now I deserve double my CEO bonuses last year because I have done innovation, because I hired an innovation manager. And it's incredibly intellectually lazy to do it that way rather than actually build innovation into the organization. And so, wait, does that mean that if you have an innovation team, that anyone in planning is exempt from having to think about innovation, or anyone on site is exempt from having to think about innovation and how do they do their job better and how to adopt new technology or new discoveries, right? And I find that way of thinking incredibly frustrating when I come across it, because it is, in a sense, self-sabotaging. You're sort of saying, like, I want to do innovation, so I'm going to put it over there. Like, what are you doing? Rant about innovation aside, with robotics on site, there's like loads of regulatory stuff as well, I'm sure, right? And so we're going to see an enormous amount of barriers, and it's not going to be that clear where the saving actually is going to be. So think about, how much would a robot that does surveys cost to develop compared to the cost of surveys, right? And it's anyone's guess, right? And I think this is where we're going to see like a very diffuse moment. There's going to be like a lot of spreading of everybody trying all sorts of things, and then serendipitously, by design, because they thought about it, because they knew, they'll claim that they knew all along post hoc, right? But someone's going to stumble into the valuable use cases, and those are the ones that are going to take off.
Do you know what I reckon, Alan? I don't think it'll be the Western world that makes this. And I say that because of the regulation point. Like, the only country really who has any grit in doing this is America. But if you think about it right now, all of the drones, all of the robotics is all built in China. And they are really competent. Really competent.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, right?
And to your point, there ain't going to be an innovation manager there. There's just going to be some dude who's like, can it labor it? Yeah, right, go for it.
Yeah. And like, there's, to a certain extent, I really don't care where it comes from, right? And there's going to be at some point, like, I think this is like the swan song of national politics that we're going through right now. Eventually, everyone's going to just realize, like, why are we doing this? Who cares? Just by, I guess, being tired of it. Right? And we'll just realize, like, we all do. And this is where, like, the world is different from where it was 100 years ago, where, like, 100 years ago, nations were different. Now, not so much, right? Like, if you go, even like the most isolated countries in the world, like North Korea, like, if you look at like what they're doing, like, they're doing the same things that everybody else is doing. Is it going to be a problem long term? Sorry, political rant aside, but yeah, I think it's gonna come from cultures that are way more embracing of risk, if you want to put it that way. There's embracing of risk that I agree with, and embracing of risk that I personally don't agree with, right? So when you start discounting the cost of human life, I start like not liking it as much. But that exists, and that will probably be an advantage in adopting things early. Like, is adopting things early good for the long term? It means that things are going to move along fast, right? But like, if it then turns out that every single thing that's been built using 3D printed concrete means that it has a lifespan of 7 years and you have to tear everything down, that's like a very expensive lesson without thinking about, consequences for human life or anything like that. So there are those kinds of things where, I guess, construction is very risk averse. We're going to let somebody else do it first, and then we're going to let somebody else do it second, and then we're going to do a pilot, and then we're going to look at it for a bit, and then we'll make a decision, right?
Alan, you seem upset about the market that we've chosen our profession to be in.
I'm not upset. I'm just being realistic about how the market decides to buy things, right?
I think it's a struggle across a lot of markets, and we know, construction sector is always sort of late to the party, to pick up new ways of working and think of different ways of doing things. I mean, geographically, it's quite interesting, Greg, you bring that up, because the last episode of last year, we looked at some of our stats, Al. I know you couldn't make it. I think you were stuck on a beach or something. I can't remember. India.
I was probably on holiday. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you were traveling. I think I remember you were battling to dial in. But India is still our number one top of the list listeners country, followed by the US and then the UK. So it's fascinating in terms of that our largest audience, a third of our audience comes from India.
I don't find it that
India
surprising.
I find India in the current environment, like project controls, Gen AI, all of this, a fascinating country. Because if you think about it, one of the benefits that Western Europe has is that it's wealthy. And what I mean by that is the infrastructure and the institutions are so well developed that you kind of get to start with a 10x power increase on your character, right? The education's great, the transport is great, apart from potholes in the UK and a bunch of stuff. But, generally it's great. India's a developing nation. It's got incredible education. It's got pockets of massive wealth and innovation. But you've actually got a whole bunch of people to which a small increase in infrastructure gives an enormous increase in life quality. Now, what that does is it creates massive demand. That demand will be voracious in some kind. So, Alan, to your point, it's like, will the regulations in trying new technology be as strict in India over the coming decade as there will in Europe or the UK or the US? Probably not. Which means that they test faster and get faster feedback loops. Which means that if you couple that with an active tech scene or a venture scene, they're able to create faster. I think it gives an interesting perspective. Now, do I think that they've got as active venture and tech scene as, for example, the US? Absolutely not. But does it stop an Indian founder going and raising US capital to build and test in India? Not at all.
Well, that happens all the time, right? Sequoia even have a dedicated fund for it. The thing that I don't find surprising is that, that our largest audience is the country with the largest number of English speakers in the world.
Is it the largest number of English speakers in the world?
So, yeah. Because,
doesn't surprise me.
It's over 1 billion people. I don't know the exact numbers, but not everyone in India speaks English, and it's not their first language. But most things, especially in business and in projects, get done in English in India. So,
wow.
And do you know what? Well, secret admission: I love watching Indian TV. It's genuinely entertaining, and the country's
some fun
beautiful.
stuff.
Yeah, I like experiencing it through a TV because I know that I wouldn't be able to deal with the heat or sun. I'm genetically incapable of dealing with that country. I'm designed for the cold, wet cloudiness of the north of the UK.
I'll be in India in a few weeks' time for the first time. I'll let you know how it goes. But yeah,
that's amazing.
Look, it's awesome. It's an awesome place. It's got awesome people as well. But as you're saying, there's awesome people all over the world. I was reading recently about Poland's economy as well, and how their tech scene is also come up in heaps and bounds the past few years, and sort of almost competing with the UK economy, if you want. So there's a lot of countries that are putting themselves on the map, and I think this is what the AI landscape has allowed many countries to do, is catch up quite quickly, because it's not necessarily all based on natural resources. As you too well know, you can take nothing, an idea, and create multi-million pound enterprises with that idea.
Governments are zero-sum games. Private markets are non-zero-sum games, and this is something that a lot of governments don't really understand. But if we come to AI, and actually I was talking to Christos, my co-founder, about this just before Christmas. It's like people genuinely have superpowers now. In that, when we started the company, and think about this, Alan, I'd love to see if you agree. When we started the company, the problem is not the challenge. The problem is uncertainty and information asymmetry. You don't know what you don't know because you're not 60 and have built it 16 times before. And by design, you're trying something that's never really been done because that's where outsized returns exist. Okay. For the uncertainty, fine. Like the testing in the market will find that out. But for the information asymmetry, we now live in a world where the tools are getting so good that you can actually find out information on things that you don't know, so long as you're aware of what you need, the conversations you need to have, and the humility you need to have those conversations to massively bridge that gap. Now, there's other things, and yeah, Poland's on the rise. There's policy, there's institutions, there's capital, there's talent, there's all these things. But you've fundamentally now got access to huge amounts of intelligence that can help you design everything. And I'll give you a perfect example. We've gone through our natural 6-month yearly iteration of all the RevOps and the lessons learned and the analysis. But this time we actually just stuck it into our private large language models and actually got it to do all of the analysis, and then got it to refine all of the GTM rules and all of the discovery questions and all of and then at the end of it just said, kick out our new calendar, all of the meetings, the meeting objectives, the pre-work, the post-work, everything. And we have it in every single meeting, taking the notes, filling it out. And it's actually designed part of the business now. If you think about that, that's a bit of a crazy superpower. You can just go to an AI and say, hey, I've got this kind of business. This is where we're at. These are all of our processes. Here's all the documentation. I want you to help me refine these and make them better.
Yeah. I think there's actually something that I found incredibly interesting when we were doing this last fundraise. About half of the VCs that we would get on a call with at the beginning of the call knew nothing. And at some point, 10 minutes in, they seemed to know everything about our market, right? Guess what was happening? There was deep research was running in the background, right? And I think, to me, that signals, well, first of all, that those VCs didn't read our deck. Who does? But most importantly, that you don't have an excuse for not knowing anymore, right? All the things that are, I'm going to say, within 1 sigma of the median, right? There are genuinely things far into outlier land that, you probably wouldn't get good results with any of the products that are out there right now. But if you're doing things that are within 1 sigma either side of the median of everything that humanity does, you don't have an excuse anymore for not knowing or doing it wrong, right? Which it does also mean that it pulls everything towards the median, which is kind of annoying in some ways. If you think about, this is what it's doing to music, right?
Mhm.
All of music is being pulled towards a medium that sounds a bit like Dua Lipa, and like I'm not happy about that. But and it actually, like, I listen to a lot of metal, but metal now all kind of sounds about the same. If you listen to Octane Radio, you get very, very similar sounding stuff, and you're not gonna get, or you're way less likely to get another Pink Floyd, because staying close to the median is what makes you enough money, right?
Yeah. When does you talk about sort of there's no excuse to not know anymore, and I think it was yourself, Greg, that brought it up before we hit record. Was are we heading to a point of saturation in a sense where when does knowledge not equate to power anymore? Knowledge is power. We were always told growing up. The more the more you can get ahead,
Knowledge
and the
of
more
power is a
success you can have, and all of that.
false thing. Information asymmetry is power.
Sure. Okay. Fine.
Information and
But
resource asymmetry are the two
so
true powers.
if that information is available to everyone, when does it stop becoming a power or leverage or an advantage?
I can think in three ways. Number one is exactly Alan's point, which is everyone getting pulled towards the mean. The mean could actually be suboptimal in some
It
way.
probably is.
Okay.
Almost all cases.
And it can create learned helplessness. Number two is where you're actively trying to be outlier. Okay? You're trying to find the road less traveled. Now, you want to do that for a number of reasons. You want to do that for scientific exploration. You want to do it for entrepreneurship. Like, there's huge amounts of patterns you could leverage, but there's that as well. And the third one I'd probably say is around the principle of emergence, which is if everything is thinking the same way, and it's really about repetition of the same thing, you get power laws effects on the repetition of the same thing, which means that you're much less likely to get errors in the system. And if you're less likely to get errors in the system, you're less likely to actually have new thoughts. And really, it's the principle of emergence that actually drives a lot of things forward. Now, I'm answering the question exactly, like technically. What I actually think we'll find is that just the bars will just change. So, like, the bar for being financially literate will change. And if you don't have a piece of, like a qualified, verified piece of AI, like a trusted one, giving you financial advice, then you're just a moron. Like, you're just being financially, irresponsible. Kind of thing. Just like, okay, yeah, you're just being silly. It's like, and the bars will just change as to where things are. So if you're not, and I had this conversation actually with a university lecturer who was like, "Oh, some of the students are using AI now to do essays, and it's so bad." And I was like, well, first of all, I was like, "No, this is entirely your problem. It's not the student's problem; it's your problem." And he was like, "How's it my problem?" And I was like, "What is a test?" And I was like, it's your way of verifying that they've ingested at least part of the information that you've dictated so that you can tell the rest of the world that they're qualified to go out and do the thing that you've trained them to do. And I'm like, don't be so lazy. Think of another test. Like because the thing you've used for the past X number of years can't be used anymore doesn't mean that it's everyone's fault. It's your problem. You're the professor. I was like,
Well,
make it so that they turn up and they have to do it live.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot sort of over the past couple of weeks around the various systems that we find ourselves in, whether it's the schooling system, whether it's our organizational system, whether it's the profession, that system that we live in, the countries we live in, whatever it is, right? There's always all these various systems we deal with. And I just wonder if, the success criteria of individuals and what we are, is that also just literally a symptom of the system, the social system that we find ourselves in. Back in the day, if you were the best hunter or best fisherman, you were the hero because you could feed the tribe. Now it's the landscape's different, and so if the success criteria is different in the future, where perhaps he or she who finds the way to live life to the fullest and enjoy themselves is the most successful and money doesn't matter, then that changes the game as well. And will AI...
Yeah, good luck with that, Dale. I'm sorry, but like
No, but
that ain't gonna happen, right? Like look at where the world is going, right? Like money multiplies money,
Yeah,
and
sure. And I'm
the
not
people
saying
with
that
money are not gonna let that happen.
100%. And I'm not necessarily saying that the world will go that way, but it's interesting to take a step back and look at the system that we find ourselves. What rules do we have in the game that we're playing, right?
Yeah, I think just going back a little bit, the really interesting thing here is that whilst it's true we are compressing towards the mean that we ascribe to now is pretty much all of human general knowledge, right? 1 sigma either side, possibly even 2, I'd say, right? So you're talking about like 95% of human knowledge. And so everybody is expected to know how to wield 95% of human knowledge and capability. You know, even if we compress everybody towards that mean, like that is a utopia of a world, right? Especially if you think about what it looks like now, right? And like the left side of the tail goes pretty far down right now, without being too despondent about it, right? But and sure, you'll have like a lot more conformity, right? And we'll all conform a little bit more to the median, and we'll all do the same things, and we'll all buy the same, I don't know, like even the same clothes or whatever, because that's what's easy, right? And now, like you actually see this in how things get built as well, right? Like we build for ease, we build for comfort, we build for convenience. And that's fine. We much more infrequently build for beauty, build for standing out, right?
Yeah.
But that actually also means that like if your goal is to stand out, it's going to be a lot easier to find out how, because everybody's doing the same thing. Your distribution's a lot narrower. You just got to step out of it, right? And so the old Victorian pumping stations that we've got in London that nobody even gets to see, which are basically on the same level of quality of Royal Albert Hall, might actually start coming out again. Like not necessarily the pumping stations, because it doesn't seem like a good use of money, because, you know, building for standing out costs more. But you might start seeing these things happen more deliberately. Now, my point about compression probably stops at wealth, right? And like wealth, like knowledge is power, but wealth has always been control, right? And power and control are like somewhat correlated, but not exactly the same thing. And like actually information asymmetry, I actually agree with Greg. Information asymmetry is power. And those that control things through wealth get to decide what directions get taken, and everybody operates in self-interest. Thanks so much, John Maynard Keynes. But that means that wealth is going to operate in the interest of wealth always and only, meaning that we're going to have a lot of it's going to become very bimodal, right? You'll have like very compressed middle, everybody's going to look the same, and then big gap and those who are in control, right? And I think we are really like ending up in that world, which like I don't necessarily like that point.
History does vibrate. I accept that. History does vibrate right now. What AI really is it's a scale technology. You and I know this, that gets people who aspire to that wealth and have the look and the ability to do so to the top end. And this is coming from 2 people who've done pretty well out of doing that exact thing. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a concrete action that that people can take away from this? And I'd say that the concrete action that people can take away from this is that we're in a world of systems, and a system is something that has emergent results. So, a certain action happens not because an individual chose to do that action, because of all the choices of actions they could take, the system motivated them to take the one they took. So it's like, even though the end user had the choice, the kind of choice was not predetermined, but it was pre-probabilized by the system in question. I'd say that the one thing that people need to learn in this age of AI we're going into is complexity science and network effects. And there's a great book on Amazon called A Beginner's Guide to Complexity that I'd recommend, or anything by Barabasi. And I'd be like, just start reading that just to get a flavor of this kind of stuff. And then if you were really interested in business, I'd look at the economics of strategy. So it's everything associated, and to be honest, you could just ask ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever, anything associated with marginal cost curves. Because someone once said to me, the shape of the graph determines the life of the person. Like, all right, okay.
One for the layman, what does that mean?
What it means is that human mind is geared to think linearly. So if I do one thing, I get one thing. So if I do two things, I get two things. But life is not built linearly. Life is built in power laws. Now, those power laws can go in a multitude of ways. They can go up, they can go down, they can go sideways and all around. Okay? So you can have a distribution where it goes up and then it goes down. You can have a power law like wealth, where it goes up and then really goes up. And it's about, okay, understanding the curve of the thing you're doing. So I'll give you an example, which is like, right. And I did this recently, Alan, you'll be interested in this. I did the marginal cost curves of production of project controls analysis across time. So I went back 20 years and I actually had the cost data and things like that. And it, let's say it cost $1,000, and that actually decreased in real terms. So it increased, but if you accounted for inflation, it decreased a little bit. So economies of learning over the next 5-10 years. And then now that AI has come about, the actual marginal cost of producing those activities has fallen by about 80%, which is the very definition that a disruption, people use this word disruption, in economics of strategy, the definition of a disruption is a large delta in the marginal cost curves of production. So it suddenly cost, it went from $1,000 to $995, and then suddenly it drops all the way to 200. And then you've got the marginal cost curve again, where it'll go down to 195 over 10 years. And it's like, if you're understanding that, you're understanding why businesses would choose certain actions and why businesses will emerge that do specific activities. That's if you want to create businesses.
Pretty deep for the first podcast of the year, but I love it. That's very thought-provoking. But let's end the pod on sort of predictions for the year. What does this year have in store for us? And you can say anything you want, Al. We'll start with you. What do you think is going to happen this year that's pretty significant? You can have more than one thing if you want.
Okay. Let's see. We're all going to have a birthday. I'm going to start with something easy. I think it's probably the year when investment in physical overtakes investment in software. And it's entirely because intelligence has become a utility. The debate about what LLM are you using in the last 6 months is just basic. Number of debates there has just gone down to zero. Nobody cares anymore, right?
No one cares.
And that means, like, that prediction that someone made at some point in 2023, 2024, I think Sam Altman might have been who said it first. And sadly, it wasn't me this time. But the intelligence is going to go the way of electricity or water, right? As long as it doesn't break your appliance or poison you, it's interchangeable and it's all the same, right? Investment in the physical, on the other hand, you've got on one end robotics, on the other end chips, right? And chips have got so much attention, and the whole of the street has realized that it doesn't matter what you do from an application perspective, it still all has to go through a chip, and that part of the market is on fire because even the software that doesn't work needs a chip, and even the applications that aren't profitable, that are going to shut down and fail, need to use the chips, right? And so I'm going to say that that's when investment in you. So, like, I'm talking about venture investment, right? Because, like, right now, you can almost say that that's already happening, right? Because, like, the largest company in the world is a hardware company, not a software running. And that in and of itself is an interesting data point that happened in 2025. That's just going to continue. So if you extrapolate forward, early stage, you're going to have a lot more early stage on the physical and a lot less on the virtual. More specifically to our domain, that's going to be my last prediction. We're going to see a conflation of roles. So, and I think that's going to be the beginning of a trend that's going to go on for a decade. So whilst we had a breakdown of roles over the last century where you get more and more specialized, right? Now, because the specialism individual contributor work can mostly be done by AI, you're going to start seeing it go the other way, right? And this is going to be true in construction management, in project controls. It's going to be true in software engineering, in data science, where, like, the better you are at knowing many things, right? So you've got to provide the top of the T when we talk about T-shaped individuals. That top of the T is way more important than the spike, because you'll have multiple spikes that you need to operate as part of your one and single role. And so, we might go from delay analyst and claim specialist and scheduler, and it might just all become project controller in the same way that, front-end engineer, back-end engineer, whatever language you want to use, it just ends up being software engineer. And it might actually just shift back to architect, which is a word that I hate, and I have, like, loads of arguments against software architects. And I think that trend is going to begin maybe tail end of this year.
I can definitely see that, where, the generalist will be more sought after, those with the breadth of knowledge than the depth, particularly with knowledge workers. But yeah, some amazing predictions there. Greg, what's your outlook? Disagree with any of Al? Give the audience what they want?
No, I actually, like, credit where it's due. Al. Those are pretty fucking spot on. Like, those were pretty. Yeah, those are pretty deep, and actually, I not just agree, I deeply agree with
Thanks.
those, especially the conflation of roles. Like, I've been thinking that the broadness of skill sets is going to massively overpower the depth of specific generalist skills. And I call it generalist skills. Like, if you're the world's leading heart surgeon that specializes in, like, certain things, no, you're gonna be fine for a while. But it's like, if you're, like you said, a cost manager, right? That's a specialization. Could a project controller do 99% of the cost manager role with some AI? Probably quite soon. Thinking of some to add for them. I did have a really good one in my mind, but I got so in depth listening to you, I actually totally forgot what it was. What I would say is that we're moving into an age of greater uncertainty now, which is obviously an obvious thing to say. And I would say that the jobs landscape will start to change very quickly, in that the cost of someone switching professions will probably decrease quite a lot, because you will be able to reference and access intelligence, knowledge, and skills that used to be asymmetrically spread with the information asymmetry, but now isn't. So, if I was coming out of uni and I had an engineering or a maths education or whatever, could I sit down with an LLM and say, I want to be head of project controls within 5 years? How do I do it? And teach me everything I need to know. Is that possible? I have no
Wouldn't the
idea.
LLM just ask why?
I would ask why. I would ask why you want to get into project controls. 100% spot on, because I think the information asymmetry there, the balance will go towards those that actually know how to use the technology rather than know the subject matter, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you can actually reframe it in terms of information asymmetry. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. One of the greatest lessons I ever had was it was called Advanced Strategic Analysis on the MBA, and it was this amazing guy, and he was actually an Italian Al, and he used to jump up on the desk and scream. He was like, the only two things that matter in life are information asymmetry and credible commitment. He was like, that's the basis of all strategic advantage. It's like, okay. Yep, there you go.
Nice and simple.
I'm going to say you only need information asymmetry. But, I come from trading desks.
Awesome insights there from the two of you. If I just add my 2 cents, so I look back at last year, and towards the end of the year, I released just some thoughts on LinkedIn in an article, and I was saying last year for me was the actual year in which project controls became a tech vertical. It'd been bubbling under for a while now, but last year for me, I had enough evidence to go, actually, it's not just a support function. People are actively looking at what technology they're using within project controls to get an advantage, where before it was just potentially a nice to have, using spreadsheets and various sort of Frankenstein system of project controls that never really worked. But I think for me, the turning point was last year, and I can see this year becoming that inflection point where the median, if you will shift higher in terms of project controls.
So, question for you, Dale. Kind of pointed and sarcastic question. I'm sorry about that, but
go for it. Give them what they
want. I'm hoping you will argue against the point that I'm making in my question. Do you think organizations like PMI and APM are going to catch up to what is plausible and possible in 2025? I'm deliberately using last year, anytime soon.
Do I think they will? I'm not close enough internally to how they operate and what their roadmaps are. But my view is they have to, otherwise they won't be relevant anymore.
I'm going to give a little bit of a, sorry, Dale, to interrupt. I'm going to give what PMI or APM are lagging indicators, because they sweep up. What they do is they sweep up what I'd call common knowledge, as in knowledge just held in a majority of individuals, codify it, and basically create the standard. They're not at the front. They're not designed to be at the front. They're designed to be this thing that you drag to catch the things in your wake. So I think
you say that, but a lot of people use PMI and APM as a way of developing themselves, right? So like if you're trying to catch up asymptotically, which is what development is, to something that is a lagging indicator.
Yeah, well, you and I know the people right at the front. You and I know that the people right at the front, like the people literally writing the textbooks on scheduling and controls, and I'm saying this, I wrote a textbook on scheduling, but it's like there's so many people who are actually inventing stuff. Like they're at the front. The things that they invent that stand the test of time, that then people adopt, then go into the masses, that then get caught in the net of the APM and the PMI. So it's a real lagging indicator.
I 100%
Should that
agree
change?
Well, yes and no, maybe. I don't really mind too much whether they change or not, because either they do or they become extinct. Because here's the thing, right? Like, if you're an individual looking for information, you have to pay a membership fee that you might not be able to afford, or your organization's not going to pay for you. Where do you go? You just go ask ChatGPT or Gemini. You probably get the same information, maybe even better. Because what institutions and associations have done to date is put a paywall between those that don't know and those that do. Now all of a sudden that barrier is lowering.
I know we're making
gone if you know how to use it.
I know we're making closing comments, but I actually reckon that what I'd call information institutions are really going to be disrupted. Because to your point, why would I pay a couple of $100 a month to be a member of something that gives me training courses where, like, not very long, I can say, make me a video course to teach me this in 30 minutes, and I can get taught, and it's immediate. Dale, but on your point, I actually think
you could probably do that right now. Like, it's maybe not a single step, but it'll be like 3 steps and you're done.
Yeah, it's not far. It's not far for many people to do. But to Dale's point, I actually agree with him, which is, I have seen this, which is project controls is now a tech vertical. And the top companies in the industry, and even probably into the mean, are really driving forward with architecture. Like, I have spoken to so many companies in 2025 where they're calling us saying, what architecture have you seen across the industry? What would you comment on this architecture? And they're really deeply thinking about project controls as a tech problem, not a people problem.
And I keep telling people the tech is there. You just need to know about it and how it works. But yeah, fascinating conversations. I particularly like our closing statement. So it's quite thought-provoking. Created some debate and then...
The Gen AI
we've both had some rest, right?
It's a philosophy podcast with a context. That's all it is.
It is. Absolutely. But look, as we always do, we invite the listeners to debate with us, tell us that we're being idiots or that we're wrong or they don't like what we're saying.
That's when we ban them.
Cancelled.
We're no longer in like the world of being democratic and letting people have opinions. No, that ended.
Yeah, you just cancel them, fake news. But no, we do also, it'd be remiss of us to not mention our brand new website. Please go check it out. We'll post a link to it in the show notes. There's 2 cool features, or I think they're cool. I don't know if I've got Al and Greg's approval yet.
Dale gets paid per click.
But the learning
and Dale is hungry, so we need to feed him.
Yeah, I only had baked beans and toast for Christmas. No, it's the learning paths are pretty cool, and then you can also listen to various podcasts depending on what you want to learn about, whether it's risk management, machine learning, whatever it is. So there's 2 cool functions on there. If you've missed previous episodes of ours, go check that out. But yeah, let us know if you want anything more on there. But with that,
gentlemen, I'm going to make a suggestion. We should have like a Patreon for buying Dale things.
A coffee. Baked beans, tin of baked beans.
I would agree with that. Like, you've done a great job with this website, and as we were saying beforehand, my favorite bit, the resources are great. My favorite bit is the description of Val. I encourage everyone to log on. If you want a little laugh, just log on. Right. Val's a close friend of the 3 of us, but he's never turned up for an episode. So do you know what? Screw him. And on every episode,
was this episode 32?
Yeah. 32, 33, we're in the 30s, yeah.
It's even told those guys I can't make, and he's like, no, we're still keeping you involved. We never leave a man behind.
We're now 33 hours of broadcasting in. talking about a man that's never going to show up. That's amazing. And like tonight, just for context, we filmed at 8 p.m. thinking like, okay, this is friendly to Australia, sort of. He could probably turn up. Still didn't.
He's doing very well not turning up. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah,
That's
you know
what
what? You know what? I'm going to go back to monetization here. Val wants to be paid. That's why.
Okay.
And so we need to raise money to pay for Val.
Maybe we
so
need to do a Patreon just to raise money to get Val on the show. He's a big deal now, you know. People know him.
This is going to be the thing, right? We're going to set up a Patreon, and only Patreon subscribers get the episodes where Val is present.
Wow.
I would pay for that.
I would pay to listen to the Phantom of Australia.
The Phantom of Oz. We will endeavor to get him on the show. On that fantastic note, folks, that cliffhanger. Look, it's been awesome to catch up with you both. Hope to see you in person. Well, Greg, I think I'll see you in a couple of days anyway. But yeah, good to catch up with you, folks. Thank you so much for spending the best part of an hour with us. As we said, you know, hopefully 2026 is a fantastic year for all of you. Watch the space. Let us know what you want to hear about. But for now, we say take care and goodbye.
Good night.